Jason Osborne joins us live. He's a political strategist and a former senior advisor to the Trump campaign. Jason, thanks for coming on. We know Americans care about jobs. Going into 2020, the president had a roaring economy to stake his reelection on it. Now Americans are hurting, but polls seem to indicate that despite these historic job losses, a majority of Americans are worried about reopening too soon. What then becomes your strategy from a campaign standpoint?
Well, I think first off, you have to look at kind of the guidelines that the administration has put out in terms of, phasing the approach of reopening economies around the country. And each state has the responsibility to kind of take a look at those guidelines and determine whether or not their mapping abilities and their contact tracing abilities fit within those guidelines. And then, I think every governor that I've heard, and every week I'm on a phone call with the 50 governors plus the 5 territories and the mayor of DC with the White House and the vice president's task force, and they talk about everyone's goal to reopen the economy. I think from a campaign perspective, what you have to look at is you have to look at who's going to get the jobs first when they reopen. And that's going to be the lower income and the middle income folks that are working in the service industries, the restaurants, the grocery stores, places where every American wants to go as soon as possible because they're tired of being at home. So we as a campaign, or at least the Trump campaign, is looking at how do we get those folks motivated to get out there? How do we get the economy going back forward? And what you will see is that Donald Trump, who we all know loves to talk about how he has the business acumen and is the best business candidate out there, will be able to say that he was responsible for the largest drop in unemployment in the history. When you go from 30 million people unemployed down to 10 to 15 potentially by election day, that's a huge jump. And that provides, I think what you're seeing in the polls, it provides the momentum that we need as Republicans to move forward.
I want to talk for a second, Jason, about optics. After the disinfectant debacle, we saw the president step back from those daily briefings, but that resumed today, but it didn't end well. I want to play this clip from earlier of the president's exchange with a reporter. Take a listen.
Why does that matter? Why is this a global competition to you if everyday Americans are still losing their lives and we're still seeing more cases every day?
Well, they're losing their lives everywhere in the world. And maybe that's a question you should ask China. Don't ask me, ask China that question, okay? When you ask them that question, you may get a very unusual answer. Yes, behind you, please.
Sir, why are you saying that to me specifically?
I'm telling you, I'm not saying it specifically to anybody. I'm saying it to anybody that would ask a nasty question like that.
That's not a nasty question.
Please go ahead.
Jason, what was it about that moment that led the president to end the press conference so abruptly and walk away?
Well, I think earlier you had said, or just a few seconds ago, you had said that he had ended the press conferences, and he actually didn't. I mean, he said, when you talk about the disinfectant press conference, he didn't have a press conference for a couple days, but then he came back out and he's had a few since then. I think the frustration, and I mentioned this last week on your network, the frustration that the president has and this administration has is that the media continues to want to push a narrative that isn't focused on what the administration is doing to end this pandemic and to get our economy going back forward. Again, every week I'm on a phone call with all the governors, and every week I hear...
Which narrative is that, though, Jason? Which narrative do you think that the media is pushing?
Well, I think the media has consistently, throughout this presidency, wanted to look at the negative aspects, as opposed to trying to look at the positive aspects. Now, I don't fault the media for wanting to try and push and ask questions. What I fault the media for is that they are actually continuing in this environment, when people are scared for their lives, and continuing to ask the president ridiculous kind of questions. I mean, a question about when people are dying around the world, Yes, of course, everybody knows that people are dying around the world. But at the same time, people are reaching, the American public in particular, are reaching a point where they're worried about, are they going to be able to afford their rent or their mortgage next month or pay
Right,
their
but Jason,
bills?
what was it about that exchange, though, in particular, that you think the president, it led the president to walk away? Because he was ready to take another question.
Right. Well, I didn't see him walk away when you played the clip, but I trust you that he did. I think the point is that because I don't know who asked the question, I can only assume by the follow-up question by that reporter that reporter wanted to try and goad him into a racial question because she may or may not have been Asian, and he said, "Ask China." Donald Trump has been consistent from day one that this crisis started in China. It doesn't matter who asked the question, whether they're white, brown, Asian, European, Mexican, whatever. That's him saying "ask China" is a legitimate response. And I'm guessing, because I didn't see who it was again that asked that question, that's probably where that reporter wanted to go with that.
Jason, but when you look at those moments and you see that there's an opportunity there to create a moment for the president, and those press briefings, when he does take those questions, it leaves a lot of room for misinterpretation. Does that hurt the president?
I think every presidential election that we have in the United States really comes down to, there's 45% of the public that is against the Republican. There's 45% that are against the Democrat. We're appealing to that last 10% of the electorate. When Donald Trump is up there, he's speaking as a Republican, trying to lead this country and trying to unite everybody together. And when he has reporters that are asking questions that, a significant, if not majority of his base see as being ridiculous and see the pathway that they're trying to go down, I don't think it hurts him at all. This president has been incredibly consistent. And again, I worked for one of his opponents during the primaries and then came to work for him after my candidate dropped out. He's never changed. And I will also say that this president is tagged with, adjectives that do not describe who he truly is and how he operates as a president. So I'm not bothered whatsoever when he gets in these situations and he gets frustrated. That's what people do.
All right, Jason Osborne, we really appreciate you coming on to bring us your perspective. Thanks for that.